Okay, Vaalmonica comes in. I love this. Pendulums are back, everyone.
Vaalmonica got crazy support in Legacy of Destruction, making the deck from hot garbage to playable. I took my own brewed up list to locals, and in this video I'm going to be going over my matchups, how the deck performed, and also talk a little bit about the pros and cons of the deck. So, if you are interested in any of the following stuff, stick around. Also, if you could hit that like and subscribe, it would really help my channel grow and show me that you guys actually enjoy this content. So, without further ado, let's get right up into the matches. For round 1, we won the dice roll and got to go first. We opened a slightly weird hand, but luckily we also opened Prosperity, which got us into Engine. We then proceed to start comboing off with Vaalmonica, and luckily our opponent didn't interrupt us at any point. So we set up an impressive board of Sabufera with the trap Followed Rhythm, SP Little Knight with Totally Awesome for an Omni Negate and follow-up, Fenrir, and the respective pendulum scales along with the field spell. I'm feeling pretty confident here, so I pass the turn. The opponent starts off by summoning Samsara Locus, revealing that he is on Yubel. This is a matchup I haven't really faced before, so I let him play a bit to figure out where to interrupt him. I attempt to use Fenrir to banish the monster that the Locus summons, but he resolves Super Poly to board wipe my whole board and burn me for 2500.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
Luckily, the opponent didn't have any more follow-up after that, so he proceeds to set a card and go to the end phase. I promptly use my in-engine trap that I said earlier to destroy it, leaving my opponent on virtually no interruptions on my turn. I start off my turn confident that I can OTK here. I quickly activate cards to get the third counter, triggering my field spell to steal the opponent's Fusion Yubel. I then link this off for Darulume, which, by removing 3 counters, can attack 3 times. I promptly use this to attempt to go for game, but the opponent reveals a Spirit of Yubel in hand.
Holy Jesus! What is that? What the f*** is that?
So, main phase 2, I try to draw some cards with Celta, which gets me to 2 imperms. I set the 2 cards, and I quickly set up a board of Zabufera and Baguska here, and pass the turn. The opponent tries to get to their engine by activating Nightmare Pain, but we simply use the effect of Zabufera to copy Followed Rhythm in our graveyard to destroy the spell and return Darulume to the extra deck so that we can recur its on-summon board wipe.
What is he doing?
He's beginning to believe.
The opponent has nothing else they can do at this point, so they just pass the turn. I get greedy here and link off the Baguska for a Darulume. I trigger its effect to clear the opponent's board. This does get him 2 Yubel, but I abuse the fact that I have 2 imperms to get damage through his Yubel and the Incarnate. I attempt to go for the final attack into his empty board, but he reveals another Spirit of Yubel in hand.
Come on now, dawg.
Main phase 2, I end up triggering the field spell again as I'm resetting Followed Rhythm by using Disharmonia. Sadly, I have no more extra deck link monsters to link off the opponent's monster with, so he gets his monster back. The opponent starts off his turn by activating the Nightmare Pain that he searched, and this forces me to use the in-engine trap. The opponent then follows up by summoning Beckoning Beast and using its effect to search the opening of the Spirit Gates. He then attempts to activate the Spirit Gates, however, I then use Zabufera's effect here to copy the trap. The continuous grind pays off, and the opponent ends up scooping on the following turn, and we go to game 2. For game 2, the opponent was able to set up their ideal board, and we weren't able to open any non-engine to break it.
It is what it is.
We try to play into it a little bit, but the opponent ends up fusing off our whole board with their trap, and at this point we're getting close to time, so I decide not to pursue this game further and simply go to game 3. For game 3, I open a solid hand, but the opponent imperms the Celatrus.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
I'm able to play through it and set up a Zebufera with the help of Sorcerer of Sebek, which helps me stay at the same life total as my opponent. Sadly, time is called before I can pass the turn to the opponent, so I didn't get to use Zebufera's effect to gain life and be ahead in time, so we tie. We win the dice roll and decide to go first. We open the combo of Scales plus Celatrus, but sadly we get impermed on the normal summon of Celatrus. We were lucky, however, and get to extend to a board of Baguska.
My time has come.
The opponent starts off their turn with the field spell. They attempt to use it to search a monster, but we use Ash. They then go on to normal summon the Beckoning Beast, but realize too late that Baguska negates it. They then attempt to activate Nightmare Pain, but we have the Ghost Ogre for that as well. At which this point the opponent can't do anything, so they pass the turn. On my turn, we go ahead and put Baguska in attack position, normal summon the Celatrus, and this time its effect resolves. We use it to search the field spell, and then we go on to get 3 counters and steal the opponent's monster. We then link 2 for Sorcerer of Sebek to deal a little bit of damage. We then link climb to Apollosa and make a Darulume and OTK here. For game 2, the opponent starts off with some Sara Locus and gets to do their whole combo. They end on a board of Apollosa, Nightmare Pain, Spirit of Yubel, the Soul of Rage, and the Yubel Trap. We start off our turn with access to actually both of the scales. We then go on to abuse the Vaalmonica spells to get 3 counters and then use the field spell to steal a monster. I misplay here by targeting the Soul of Rage, thinking that I can use its effect to quick effect Link Summon on my turn. We realize that this is not possible, so I link it off for a Zabufera and then attempt to go into battle and crash into Apollosa. This is where I realize I made the second mistake because the Nightmare Pain forces me to attack into the Spirit of Yubel.
And I've decided that I want to die.
At this point, I realize that I cannot get through this board, and so I scoop and go to the next game. For game 3, we set up the scales and activate Versari to get access to Celatrus. Unfortunately, the opponent has the imperm for the normal summon of Celatrus, so we set 2 and pass the turn. The opponent doesn't actually have access to Engine, so he sets a card and passes right back. On our turn, we start off by linking off the Celatrus to get an Artemis and get Celatrus back to hand. We then normal summon it, and our opponent attempts to Ash it, but we do have the called by here, and so we search a Celta to hand. At this point, since the opponent activated a card, we use Talons to draw 2. From here, we Pendulum summon a Celatrus and an Angelo Vaalmonica, and decide to make an Abyss Dweller because the opponent activates a lot of effects in the graveyard. At this point, time is called, and so we realize we need to gain life points, so we start off by activating Intonari in the hand to special summon a monster and gain life points, and then copy its effect with Angelo for game. For game 1, the opponent wins the dice roll and decides to go first. They normal summon Diviner and then use it to send Trias to the graveyard, and then use Trias' effect to tribute Diviner, hoping to special summon their low. However, we have the Ash Blossom and use it here to stop the special summon. On doing so, the opponent has no other plays, so he passes the turn. We start off our turn by setting up our scales and comboing off. We get to 3 counters on both scales and get greedy here by making Daralume. Before battle, the opponent uses Nib to clear our board. At this point, we are forced to use Link Spider to go into Zebufera. And at this point, all we can do is use Talons to rip Engine from the opponent's hand and pass the turn. Sadly, the opponent top decks a low. They get into their Engine, combo off, and make their boss monster. They use it to crash into Zebufera and negate Zebufera's effects. They then go on to make a Dynamondo and abuse it later on to special summon back low and trigger its effect again. They then set up their trap on our turn for a board wipe. We try to set up a play to get into access code and break their board, but the opponent board wipes us before we get there, so we have to scoop. For game 2, I see my opponent put his hand down and take it as a signal that there is no interruption. So we make a simple board of Zebufera plus the trap and Baguska. But on resolution, the opponent reveals a Nibiru, which clears our board. We use this opportunity to use Thrust to set a Dimensional Barrier and pass the turn. For the opponent, this is basically a turn skip. The opponent starts off their turn and attempt to Ritual Summon, and we call D-Barrier, calling Ritual Summon.
It's payback time.
At this point, the opponent uses the Nibiru to just destroy our token, set 2 and pass. We use the trap at the end phase to just pop one of the traps and call it a day. On our turn, we normal summon Celitris, but the opponent has the Nimperm. We continue to play because we have Inventari in hand, and this gets us to a Daralume, which clears the opponent's board. We Pendulum Summon for 2 and simply remove counters so that Daralume can attack 3 times, and we stop on the 4th summon to just go for game. For game 3, the opponent starts off by normal summoning low. They get to their standard end board, and this time they hit us with a D-Barrier of their own, calling Pendulum Monsters. Our opponent uses the trap to get into their Seravis and remove its ability to board wipe for the turn. We use the field spell to search a second Celitris, and then we Pendulum Summon for 2. Time is called here, so all we're looking to do is gain some life points to win. So we make a Baguska here so that the opponent can no longer interact with our board. We then activate Prosperity to hopefully hit a Vaalmonica spell, and lo and behold, we get a Celta. Simply gain 500 life points, not caring about that card's actual effect, and win in time. Vaalmonica is surprisingly capable, and the playstyle reminds me a lot of Drytron. The deck did very well at searching out any of its missing pieces, but to make up for how consistent it is, it doesn't really start going off unless you open 2-card combos. While it does have a few normal summons, the deck cares more about activating its spells and getting to the counters more than anything else, which is great because this makes it hard to interact with a lot of decks now that Omni Negates were taken out. But along with that, sometimes you just open pieces of your combo, and when your opponent tries to interrupt your monster, you just play through it like nothing happened. The boss monsters for the deck were also really enjoyable to play and make, and their additional effects were very relevant for when they were made. The field spell was especially strong. I was easily able to steal the opponent's monster both on my turn and the opponent's turn multiple times. The trap followed rhythm was very good at stopping the opponent from even setting up a board, because with the Link monster, you'd get both of its effects, and the Link monster also would copy the effect. So you basically got 2 copies of the trap, and sometimes that would even become a 3rd copy based off of how the match went. Their going first and going second strategies felt really easy to play and were also very strong for what they could do when set up. Their recursion also felt really nice, just being able to pendulum summon back your extra scales from the extra deck after linking them off. Finally, this deck performs better at tournaments simply because of the time aspect. In my matches, almost all of them ended up going to time, and this was mainly because of my lack of experience with the deck, but also because of my lack of knowledge of the matchups as well. And this is surprisingly where the deck shines, because each of our spells becomes a time card. Overall, the deck was a fresh experience of the pendulum mechanic, and I would recommend for you to try it out if you're looking for a new pet deck to try out. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.